that we've been doing. Our guest that we have for this year is Kevin Wiltsey, tall guy in the cowboy hat, and Scott Heineman. Oh god, it's looking right past you. Be sure to take advantage of them today. Our first stop, I'm going to let Levi actually introduce what we're doing here at our first stop. We're going to try and do about 30 minutes at each stop. So questions are good, but if we want to keep moving while it's halfway cool, we got a ways to go as far as traveling across the county. So by all means, if you have more questions, uh, yep, exactly, ask them on the bus. So I'll let Levi introduce what we're doing here.
I don't know what we're doing. I just started it. Anyway, I guess we're here. This Farrell Sanders place. I guess we were brainstorming, us as a uh, board for the conservation district. We were brainstorming ideas on what to do on this tour, like we do every year. And Cam, too, over my shoulder here, that works for Halter, was spent I don't know how many hours at our place one day, and suckered me in. And I said, why don't we do something with the this Halter program? Because I think there's a lot of cool potential with it. And I'm in the infancy stages of it, of just getting it figured out, getting them put on, training cows, so on and so forth. And I knew Farrell was a little closer here to where we wanted to go versus me clear on the other end of the county. And so I asked Farrell to join us a little bit. And I guess I'm going to turn it loose to him and Cam, and they can talk, and I guess I'll interject as we go if I have an idea.
Cam, anything you want to say up front, or do you want to say after? Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Farrell Sanders, and I'm partners with my brother Darren. He's got the same hat, passing out the flyers. But we're really glad to have you. And I thought I would just maybe tell you a little bit about what we're doing here, and I'm more than happy, to take questions. Can get a little long-worded, but I'll just start off with just a little bit about our operation. We don't do really anything. There's no rocket science here. We've got a cow-calf operation. We're always targeting 300 cows, but we're always a little bit under that, it seems like. So we're running about 280 cows. We raise replacement heifers. So we've got red Angus commercial cattle, and we keep heifers for ourselves. And I would say our number one objective is selling replacement heifers, but we also sell steers, yearling steers, direct into feedlots, and they're usually hanging on a rail at 18 months of age. So we're AIing everything, and then we've got quite a slew of cleanup bulls. The process we run, just kind of based on the resources we have, we calve in dry lots. They've been fairly confined dry lots. One of them's 7 acres, one of them's 4 acres. And we're planning on using Halter to help us a little bit in that regard, and I'll talk about that. But we're in dry lot January to April. We AI 1st of May, and then they're in native grass pastures May through October. We finish fall harvest. We wean our calves then. They're 9-10 months old. Put the cows on stocks for November, December, and then rinse and repeat. So that's kind of our process. And kind of our core strategy again is selling replacement heifers. So we're trying to get, our objective is to get the same or more out of our heifers that we get out of our steers. Darren and I, like I said, are 50-50 partners in terms of having the same number of cows. Our Halter experience, Connor Chesky was our representative at the time, and he came out here last summer, and we did a tour and talked about it. And even though we've got 280 cows, we got 250 collars because we're spread out geographically, so a little over 10 miles. But if we looked at the time, the only offering was the cellular data tower connectivity. And if you look across the road here, we've got neighbors' cows got Halter collars on. They've got the satellite version, so they're directly connecting to Starlink, whereas ours are connecting. You can just barely see the tower over that little hill there. We have 3 towers that we've got set up. So our collars talk to the tower, it collects the data, and then it sends it to the web via data connection. We had to put those towers up ourselves. They shipped them to them, very Apple-like in terms of how they're packaged. And first one took me 5 hours, the second 3. I got really proficient by the third. Now I've forgotten how to do it. But just a little bit on, you buy the towers, so there's a bit of a capital investment on the towers. We rent the collars, and I've got a couple of collars here if you want to pass them around. You rent those on an annual basis, and then you have a fairly immaterial data charge. I don't know. Cam can talk about what the Starlink version is like. You put the collars on the cows only. No yearlings, no calves, no bulls. And the idea is the calves and the bulls stay pretty close to the cows, although it doesn't really matter. Our yearling heifers don't have them because they're still growing, because you have to size the collars and you don't want them to outgrow the collars. And then we have a pasture that is just too far and it's rented, that we didn't put a tower up for that. The collars stay on year round, and as you put them on the cows, you assign them to that cow's ear tag number, so that way you've got a way to identify them. They're solar powered, and you'll probably see there's 2 little devices here that sit at the top of the neck, and there are solar panels in there that are charging them. And then the little weight is just to keep it balanced on the neck. Yeah, they know the GPS location of your cow at any time. So if you need to locate a specific cow, and you can actually, I've not done it, but you can actually light them up. So if it's in the evening and you're having trouble picking the cow out, even though you got the GPS location, you can turn a light on. But they contain the cows. You draw on there's an app that you'll draw a virtual boundary. So we'll follow our fence line, cut across the pasture. You just do it with your finger works better on an iPad than a phone. And then the collars, as the cow approaches the boundary, it beeps. And if they ignore it, it beeps more or faster, not louder, but faster. And if they ignore it long enough, they get a shock, just like electric fence. So the other function it has is a vibration function. And, it's meant to shift or move the cows. And this system was developed in New Zealand for the dairy industry, where they graze everything there. So the cows are out on pasture all day long, and then they bring them in to milk them. And the vibration was used to kind of recall the cows or move to different areas of the pasture. We, thanks to Halter, they kind of connected us up with NCRS, and they're a highly respected arm of our universities and federal government, and they were very good to work with. Now, I ignore a little bit of what they say because they tell you to run just a handful of cows in your pasture, but if you ignore that, the rest of it's really good. They have a really complicated spreadsheet where they came out and drove the pastures with me, looked at the type of grass we had, the quality of the grass, and then we looked at where our water sources are, which is a very important aspect of this. And so we decided, we could break this pasture into 3 groups, 4 groups, and then they pull all the soil types, and they've got something that calculates the forage production. And then, their rule is take 25, leave 75. But if you talk to K-State and the rotational grazing folks, their rule is take 50, leave 50. So that's the rule we're following, because we can't afford to leave 75%. But anyway, they help us determine how long to stay in each grazing area. So in the beginning of the year, where the grass is growing fast, your rotations are going to be faster. And it's not so much the time the cows are eating, it's the time the parts that you're not grazing are resting is the important part. And then as the season goes on, it gets hotter, drier, then those periods elongate. So in the early part of the spring, you might be rotating, every 2 to 3 weeks. You get to the middle, 3 to 4 weeks, and then you get toward the end, you're more like 4 weeks. But you have to use your eye and your brain as well, and kind of based on your rainfall, um, just kind of adjust. But that was a very helpful exercise. And the idea is, I mean, I'm sure we all have this. If you have a pond or solar well, it's grubbed down right around that, and then you got other areas of the pasture the cattle just kind of pass through, and it ends up growing up real rank and doesn't get utilized. And even though we're only in our first year, we can see a more even distribution of grazing. And if you get some grazing early on, then you'll have regrowth rather than maturity. So one of our objectives is to not supplement hay, because sometimes it's been dry the last 5 years, and we feel, we can have bleeding hearts here when it comes to cattle, and we'll run hay out because we don't want them to be hungry. But if there's better grass quality at the end of the season and we can save on that, that'll be one of the benefits. When I talk about what we've seen so far, this was a hay field, and this year I split the hay field, and so we're grazing it. So this is, I think, the second rotation here, and it looks pretty good. But we've had so much rain this year, or much more compared to last year.
It was CRP.
It was CRP. Yeah, it was a farm field CRP. We've burnt it, hayed it to improve it, fertilized it, even though they say not to do that. This wasn't fertilized this year, but anyway, they've been in this couple weeks, but clearly we could have more cattle in there. If I kind of give the grade card, hopefully I won't make Cam too nervous here. The core of this system is the rotational grazing, and that works fantastic. It basically contains them like an electric fence, virtually. It's rare to ever have a cow outside of that containment, but it does happen. Sometimes they follow the calves, ignore the beeps, and we've all got those strong-willed cows. But most of the time, they're well contained. We have a lot of. We're probably the only ones in the county, but we've got a lot of poor fences, and every year I'm going around fixing them in the spring, and the cows aren't reaching through. I can tell just by looking at, they're not sticking their heads through and grazing on the other side of the wire. So I'm hoping there'll be less wire pulled off the fences, broken wires, and that will save me some time. Another benefit is instead of having your cattle on the whole pasture and the bulls are just, getting their steps in during breeding season, you have them contained to a third of the pasture. So even though we're AIing everything, we get 60-some% success rate. The bulls and the cows are in closer proximity, so you have a better chance, I think, of getting an early rebreed on those cows that didn't AI. Clearly the location is good. Like you can look on the app. I can look a specific cow up. It'll tell me exactly where she's at. So if you're wanting to show her off, or you're worried that she had a limp when you turned her out, you can locate them very well. The vibration part on the moves and the shifts, just the way we operate, doesn't work very well for us. We don't move often enough. And then I think Cam would say the quality of the grass they're leaving versus the quality of the grass they're going to plays a part. Well, it just so happens with the rain this year, even when we're ready to move them, the grass still looks pretty good. So they're not terribly motivated to move. So some of our moves have taken a couple of days. So I kind of watch when they're close to the boundary line and initiate the shift. And then I watch them once they've all crossed the boundary line, the virtual fence goes up and they're in the new area. It hasn't really been a problem for us, but it just has worked differently. When we originally got this, we thought, hey, this will help us at roundup time, because we've hired cowboys and we cube trained everything, and we thought, well, we'll be able to maybe not get them in the catch pen, but get them close to the funnel. But I think that was probably us just fantasizing a little bit. So we'll just keep doing the things that we have to do. One of the features this year, they had a heat detection feature, and it's beta, so it's brand new. It's being tuned, but they could tell when the cows were riding each other. And when we first got that, we looked at it and we went out in the pasture, and sure enough, that cow's in heat. Bull and other cows are following her around. But then as the season went on, we had cows with 2 heats, 3 heats, 4 heats. Well, I think it's just needs to be dialed back a little bit. It was over reporting. So we're waiting for a more mature version of that. It wasn't that important. It was just kind of informative, I guess. We haven't done this yet, but we're planning. When we run our cows on stalks, and so you drop them into a cornfield. And what do? They go around and find all the ears of corn on the ground. So the first couple of weeks, we're feeding bicarb in the water, and we don't have any bloating problems, but they're eating up all the corn. And then they get a little later in the season, and there's no corn left. So we're gonna put them in the fields and give them access to the first third for a couple of weeks, then the second third, then the third third, and that'll hopefully stretch the corn out a little bit more. And so we'll still have an electric fence around the perimeter. And then I talked about the fact that we calve in lots, so it's easy for us to check things, get something in to pull a calf if we need to. But the downside of that is you fight bacterial buildup and disease, especially as you get close to AIing, and nobody likes to lose a calf. So we're going to try to implement something called the Sandhills method. I'm sure you all know what that is, but we're going to have the lots that have a nice fence around them. And so before the cows calve, through their collars, they'll be confined to the lot. And then the mush rush has done a lot with this down in the foothills. So as the cows calve, we'll flip the collar and give them access to clean, dry pasture. So we'll cordon off the pasture with a couple electric fence wires, so the cows and the calves can wander out in the clean pasture. Then they can still come in and eat the bunk, because we feed our cattle out of a feed wagon. So we hope to get the best of both worlds, but that'll be new to us coming up this spring. So just kind of a summary here, and then I'll let Cam speak. Halter's been a great company. They're not a public company. They're New Zealand based. Started in the dairy industry. They got a dynamic CEO. They're growing like crazy. I think they're the market share leader in this space. And I didn't really evaluate any of their competitors. I just looked at people I trust that were already using them. And we've had a good experience. When we collared, we did it the day we AI'd cow. Well, 2 days that we AI'd cows. Cam came out and collared for us one day, and Connor Chesky came out the other. So that was that was a big help, because you're already under a lot of time pressure when you're doing that. I don't know if they'll do that for everybody, but twist their arm, they will. We've had very few issues, not really any technology issues. We did have one cellular tower that, according to Halter, there was a cellular data network problem. I never noticed it, even though our next closest tower is probably 4 miles away. We maintain some level of connectivity with that tower, and Halter already remedied that. They've come out and they've got redundant SIM cards in the towers, so they can fail over from one provider to another. I didn't really notice that. We lost one collar. I had some old sheep fence or whatever kind of matted down on the ground, and the cow got her collar hung up on that. And the way these collars are made, if you're passing them around, they've kind of got a breakaway buckle. So if it's pretty strong, but if it gets hung up, then it'll break loose. So the app notified me that the collar wasn't moving. I went and found it in the dirt, and so that worked really well. The I think they're still tuning this, but it's supposed to tell you if a cow stops moving. Maybe they're dead or broke a hip or something like that. And we've had some mixed results with that. I've gotten a few notifications that I got the pasture and cow's walking around, she's fine. So, it kind of gets your anxiety up a little bit. And then we've had one cow go down that, it didn't notify us on. I was watching that cow anyway, but as far as the cost, we kind of went into this with an investment mindset. We really wanted our number one objective is to improve the pastures, especially given the dry years we've had the last few years. So we wanted to see more of that big blue stem shooting up, and not see things grubbed down as heavily in certain areas. So uh, I again, we've had a lot of rain this year, but I feel good about that investment. When I talked to Connor and I went into this, I kind of a financial guy. If you look at the cost of it versus like renting additional pasture, if you could increase your stocking rate 25%, it pays for itself. So anything between 0 and 25% makes it less of an investment. But in the end, if our grass quality is better in the fall, and we don't put as much hay out, there'll be some hard dollar savings there. Some time saved on fixing the fences in the spring. Maybe our bulls bred the cows a little quicker. So there's a lot of soft benefits, I think, that come with it. Not looking to add cost, uh, but anyway, and I think it's early. So I think we'll see more developments, more features come out. So we feel good about it. It's not super. It's not like turning things over to an AI engine and the government's looking over my shoulder or anything like that. It's really just there to improve the pastures. And if we get better calf health in the spring, or our stocks last a little longer in the fall, I mean, those are all, I think, positive. So I'll conclude. Darren, is there anything you want to say, or?
You said it.
Okay. Cam, you want to make a couple of comments and then we can take some questions?
Yeah, I think you covered most of it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and give you a PowerPoint presentation on virtual fencing because no one needs that. I think Farrell did a great job of kind of explaining it. If you guys have more questions or specific kind of use cases or anything, then conscious of time, come talk to me. And if not, we can connect afterwards. So that's, yeah. Thanks, Farrell.
Scott or Kevin, do you guys have any comments?
We're going to put them on in a couple weeks. So finally signed a contract in March, and we're just now getting them. So
Yeah.
but we'll use them. We currently move every day, and so we're currently, that's how we'll use them and increase. We're going to change paddock size and direction, and then we hope to pick up like on winter grazing stocks and cover crops. We're hoping to increase our carrying capacity probably 1.5 times. So I'm kind of more like the numbers I push. Like if we can spend $1 and get $2 back, then that's what we're going to do. So that's what I'm expecting a halter. So, but we have our infrastructure in place already to move cattle every day with polywire for the most part. So we'll see what happens. So.
I will say, when I got with NCRS for native pasture, they like you to have at least 5 areas to graze. That gives the optimal rotation rest period for your grass. We just couldn't do that, and maybe that's just the way we think. Um, we're very big into water, so we have 10 water wells and ponds in all of our pastures. So we want the ponds for the cows to swim in, but we want them drinking cool, clean water. So in order to have redundant wells and a pond, those requirements, is how we ended up with like 2 or 3 pastures. But I know there are more intensive grazing options and so forth. Cam, is there anything you want to say about satellite versus tower? And
Yeah, I mean, it's The towers are great. They work really good in a situation like this where stuff's pretty contiguous. It's pretty right here. The satellite option's obviously really good if we're not contiguous, if we're spread out on rough terrain, whatever it is. There's a lot more flexibility with the satellite deal where we can run from here clear to Colorado if we want. So it's, it's a case by case. Come talk with me if that's something that you're really interested in, really concerned about. The easiest way is just to come talk to us. I promise I don't bite, so we can kind of talk about what it looks like for each individual operation.
But you're still selling both.
We are. To be honest, I don't know if I've sold a tower system since May. Just because the flexibility with the satellite's appealing to a lot of people, especially in Kansas. If we're going to go run on corn stalks, covered crops, whatever it is, maybe that's 20 miles down the road. They like having that peace of mind and flexibility. It's pretty easy. But yeah, I mean, happy to talk about either.
Well, that's why we waited. Yeah. Well, the reason that we waited on the satellite collars is because we've got cows in Riley County all the way to Lincoln County, and it just didn't make sense to try to do the tower deal.
I think cost-wise, kind of a wash. I did the math.
Yep.
It costs a little more for the satellite collars on an annual basis, but if you look at that difference, is about the cost of the tower.
Precisely. Yeah. It's almost like that was the point, right? Is that they pencil out really, really similar. So,
You guys got any questions? I was gonna say, if you guys want to follow us to Wells, we can pick you up. You want to go on it on the bus with the rest, go on the rest of the tour. If you guys don't, that's fine too.
I don't know where you're going.
That's a surprise. We'll come back to Wells, I promise.
A few minutes later.
Farrell had soil tested, and is deficient in potash and phosphorus, and so it's not cheap to fertilize it, but the output that this has, the hay output and then the grazing has improved. So you don't normally think of native grass needing fertilizer, but this is definitely, when we grazed it, we've been haying it, and then Farrell's been grazing it and letting the cows out here after we take the bales off, and that has thickened the stand up a lot. And when we swathed it this year, that was one of the things, the east side we swathed, and that was one of the things we noticed, that just how much smoother the field was and how much more even the grass was. A lot of side oats, Grandma, a lot of big blue, little blue, which is really good to see that.
NCRS says the cattle foot traffic will make the roots grow deeper. It'll make it fill in. You won't see as much. Yeah.
Can I talk on behalf of NRCS?
Yeah.
Adam Elliott, Conservation Service, NRCS. Probably one of the things that we don't do is use our CRP well enough, and so I'll go through and say on a lot of CRPs you can graze it up to every other year from July 15th through the end of September. And so that's not something that everybody knows. And a lot of our contracts now have mandatory, what we call mid-contract management, which means those people who own that CRP have to do something out there. And that grazing can be a part of that mid-contract management for those. So to go through, and if you wanted to start trying to get it into your rotation of using that CRP every other year, it does require a 25% reduction in the CRP payment. But as landowners, you can have the tenant go through and pay that 25% reduction. You still get your full cost. If it costs $40 an acre for that CRP, you're renting that CRP grass for $10. If it's even $60 an acre, $15 an acre to go through and rent that CRP grass. And if you can burn it one year and graze it the next year, especially if you know that that's what you're going to be using it for, burn it one year, graze it the next year, your grass quality is so much better, and quite frankly the CRP quality is so much better. You're never going to have a government guy come out there and say, oh hey, look, you don't have enough flowers out there, oh hey, you got too many trees out there. If you can get in that, burn one year, graze the next year, talk about looking like the Flint Hills, or starting to move its system a lot faster. You can start to do that even before it comes out of CRP, if that's the ultimate goal.
Adam, I had you out here to look at this. when I first got it, but
Yeah.
we've taken it out of the CRP program, and but we're going to flip-flop ends of the field, haying and grazing, and then, you know, I'm probably breaking rules, but 1st October, I give the cattle access to even to the part we hayed, and I haven't noticed personally haven't noticed any negative impacts of that. They're only out there for 30 days and so forth, but I know we talked about fertilizer, and, you know, there's different schools of thought, but we've seen the grass thicken up a lot, and it's just the soil was mined of phosphate and potassium, so it just needed a little bit of correction. And, you know, we've done it right or wrong, I guess.
What was the
I
what
know I
was
told you that, probably wasn't going to be a return for
Right.
you. It's not going to be something, these systems don't run off of that much stuff out there. The phosphorus probably, is going to be one of the biggest benefits to it, but at the same time, the most costly input you can probably put into it. And so, you know, did it benefit it? Oh, just from what we looked at to what it looks like now, probably. You got to be the judge of your operation. Did you get enough out of it to make that investment work? Then that's for each individual to decide. But
What was your phosphorus levels when you tested it before you applied it?
I do not remember.
They were really low.
Yeah, like
Yeah, I doubt in the 70s and 80s this place had much phosphorus at all put on it. You know, it was a poor farm, and, you know,
It's actually good soil. It's creek soil. For us, that's good soil, but you know, it is water erosion, wind erosion. You know,
You have issues with smooth brome grass?
you know, we've got a little bit of it in the draws, but, you know, not a lot of issues. In some pastures where we've had overgrazing, you know, we'll have, I don't know, I call it wheatgrass. We'll have other cool season grasses, but again, I think if you can spread the pressure around a little bit, you know, over time, that can get better.
probably have more concern with the old world blue stem.
Okay.
I don't want to cut it off, but we're going to keep